I am Anuli Akanegbu, and you are listening to the Black in Real Life Podcast.
You're golden, you're so golden. What you got, you're the golden child. I see forever between you and me, forever between us.
Danielle Prescod is a 15-year veteran of the beauty and fashion industry. She has previously worked at InStyle, Elle, Moda Operandi, Teen Vogue, and most recently, she served as the style director at BET.com. She is a lifelong fashion obsessive who spent her formative years in uniforms at prep school in Greenwich, Connecticut, and relished in the opportunity for self-expression and attention that fashion provided. As an avid reader and writer, Danielle primarily dedicates her time to researching how subjects like feminism and social justice intersect with pop culture. She has taken all that she has learned as well as her experiences in the beauty and fashion industry to start the consulting company 2BG Consultant with fellow beauty and fashion industry vet Chrissy Rutherford. Also, it looks like congratulations are in order. In addition to her work as co-founder of 2BG Consultant, it was also announced just last week that Danielle will be publishing a book about her life to date called Token Black Girl. Follow Danielle on social media at Danielle Prescod for more details about her book. In this episode, Danielle and I talk about the beauty and fashion industry's reaction to last summer's racial uprising, how she creates boundaries in her online and offline lives, and her plans to leave New York City. Remember, at the end of each interview, I will come back to share a few key takeaways that stood out to me from our conversation. These takeaways will be supplemented with research from both academic and non-academic sources to add further context to subjects that were brought up in the interview portion. For every episode, I will include citations to the reference materials I mentioned, as well as some additional background reading for you on the Black in Real Life website. Visit www.blkirl.com to nerd out. Just one quick note about our conversation. You're going to hear some background sound because Danielle was talking to me at the time from her apartment in Manhattan, and noise just comes with the territory when you live in the city. Such is life. If you follow Danielle on Instagram, you'll see that her life has changed quite a bit since our conversation was recorded. So, okay, without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Danielle Prescod.
I know May 31st, you had a video on Instagram about performative allyship, and I saw that personally everywhere. It was getting a lot of shares, over 2.5 million views from the last time I saw. Can you talk a little bit about what inspired you to post that video? Like, what was the final straw that made you say, you know what, I need to say something about what's going on?
Honestly, it had just been like a lot of observation over, Armand Arbery's death happened. And I just watched like so many people in my direct orbit essentially like not even respond, but like just go about their lives as if their workouts and their, breakfasts and whatever it is that they were doing. Because at the time we were all still pretty heavily in quarantine. Without like acknowledging or saying anything. It was so frustrating. And then like, of course, after that, it was like George Floyd's death. And more people began to pay attention. But to me, I'm like, okay, so now you've just been shamed into posting. So there's a lot of people who posted just because of the fact that they, thought they should, or they saw everyone else doing it. And they were like, I will look a certain way if I don't. Not from really a place of like genuine concern or desire to express a sentiment about this man who was essentially murdered for the entire world to see. And I am someone who I work at a Black media brand. I am constantly talking about racism in this industry. And I'm like, so if you guys would have just simply addressed the racism in the realm with which you can, you wouldn't have to be boo-hooing over George Floyd, like, who you don't know, I don't know. Like, it's of course terrible what happened to him, but at the same time, there are so many things that you could do in your own personal life and so many steps that you could individually take before we get to a place where someone is murdered. Bad things that are happening to Black people that you could actually stop.
What do you think on that note? What do you think about afterwards over the summer, brands are posting all of these solidarity statements online? Were you at all optimistic about the statements leading to any kind of change?
To be honest, not really, because so much of like what is required to actually make a difference is a financial investment. And frankly, brands are not in a position to do that right now. COVID has decimated businesses, completely changed so many industries. And so like they can say they're all in favor of things all they want, but it's like if they're on a hiring freeze, they can't reasonably employ anybody. They can't make like actual significant changes to their organization, which essentially would mean like to have more Black voices and other people of color in the company.
Do you feel like your thoughts or approach to like social justice have evolved since working at BET compared to like where you used to work before, which are more like predominantly white spaces?
I would say so. I mean, simply because it has to, like the audience I serve is only Black. So my concern is only for Black people. And whereas like when I worked at other places, it was like my audience was a mainstream audience. So it was more serving all women. And so there was a desire for me to integrate Black people and people of color into content that I was doing when I worked into mainstream brands, but like I wasn't just serving them. So anything that I do at BET has to reflect the Black community positively.
One thing I appreciate about following you online is how professionally honest you can be. And there was another Instagram post you shared on August 27th, and you talked about the pressure that you felt after initially going viral to say the right thing online. Can you talk about, or if you're comfortable, can you talk about where that pressure came from to feel like you have to say the right thing online?
Well, I mean, it's more so that now I have like a much bigger platform than I used to. And I try to caution people when they initially started following me. I'm like, I am not your educational resource. Like, I'm just a girl living my life. Like, of course, this is like what I do because I'm passionate about media and how we all need to just have improved media literacy and like better consumer spending habits in general. But I am like by no means a Rachel Cargill, like, you know what I mean? Like I am not an educator by profession. So like, if you are going to come here looking for that constantly, you need to go somewhere else. And I felt like very much like, oh my gosh, this is, and also like on social media, just things take on a life of their own. Like, it's like, I don't really have like any control over like how people respond to anything I post. So, but what I do have control over is what I post. So I think the more careful you can be about things, like the better it is. And I was just feeling so like weird about the fact that like we had, Jacob Blake did not die, but essentially like we had just witnessed another incident of police brutality. And it was almost like June didn't happen, you know? Like, I was like, this is like really weird. Like, why, I'm like, why even bother in the first place, posting all that, saying all that, going through all that drama, if you were just gonna do nothing when another opportunity came around for you to do something.
And I think that's a good segue to talk about the consulting company that you just started, 2BG, so Two Black Girls with Chrissy Weatherford. Can you share how the idea to start a consulting company came about?
I mean, it's really simple. Both of us have worked in this industry for a very long time. We have extensive relationships with other influencers, with brands, and we have been giving advice for free for years, and now they are going to pay us for it.
I love that. Because I was actually going to ask you, because you seem like the type of person that a lot of people probably come and ask you, like, can I pick your brain all the time? And they expect like free advice. So like, what is helpful for you aside from creating this company, but how else do you establish boundaries for yourself on like what advice that you want to give out freely and what advice you think is worth charging for?
I mean, it's a really fine line. I think that I tend to just go with my gut and things that like feel really organic for me. But I also like value myself enough and value my experiences enough that like I don't do work for strangers like at all. Like if my best friend wants to call me and be like, I had this the other day, my best friend was like, one of my best friends was like, a jewelry brand wants me to consult with them, like how much should I charge? I'll definitely tell her that. I am not going to tell some random girl who DM'd me like what she should do like for her major or like what she should, you know, charge for whatever. I'm like, I don't know you. So I'm not going to do that. And there's also plenty of resources out there. Like, I think it's like kind of crazy that so many people would just be like, instead of me trying to find out information, I'm just going to go ask this person as if she owes me something because I follow her.
And does that happen to you a lot in your DMs? Do people feel like entitled to free advice from you?
Totally. I mean, I literally got someone the other day who was like, I'm going through a breakup. Like, what should I do? I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Get a therapist.
Does that feel like pressure that people like want to put so much value on your opinion on personal matters like that in your in their lives?
I mean, not really, but what I do is I turn my DMs off. So I have the control on like whether or not I let people in. And that definitely lets me live my life in a better way. I can like go through them, but like if they're old, I probably won't see it. Like I don't check them all the time. Just because it gets like so overwhelming and I'm like, I don't have time for that. Chrissy, on the other hand, responds to like literally like every single person that writes her. And I'm like, that's insane. And I know people, I have like other friends who are like career influencers and they do too. And I'm like, I'm like.
Do you consider yourself an influencer? Because I know you do a lot of collaborations with brands, or you have in the before too.
I mean, I don't really consider myself an influencer. I consider myself someone who has a platform.
What's the distinction for you? What does the word influencer evoke to you?
Well, I mean, there are certainly people who's like, this is like their career, like creating digital content for social media is like what they do 24/7. But to me, that's like not what I do 24/7.
Are you doing your work with 2BG in addition to your work at BET?
Mm-hmm.
So like 2 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a lot. How do you kind of manage your time to dedicate your efforts to both those responsibilities and then your responsibility as a human being outside of your work?
Well, it's definitely easier now that I have nowhere to go. But
Sure.
yeah, I mean, look, everyone in New York that I know has a million plates spinning. That's just like life here. Like that's how it is. I don't know anyone who has been working in media and hasn't had like several side hustles. So it's like pretty normal, I think, to have many things going on.
Is there an alternative reality for you where you're not living in New York or where you're not working in the media?
Oh, definitely. I at the end of this year, I will be moving.
Are you going to move to Atlanta like everyone?
I'm not moving to Atlanta.
There's a lot of people moving to Atlanta or LA.
I would never live in Atlanta. Oof. I'm not going to say where I'm moving yet.
Fair enough.
I am moving. I'm very excited.
And what do you think in general? You don't have to share where you're moving, but I wonder where, for a lot of people, did the idea to move come because of these quarantine COVID times, or is it something that you wanted to do? Okay.
I mean, I had been playing around with it, but of course, like for the function of my job, I would travel very often. I have never spent this much time in my apartment before, and I also never got this apartment with the intention to spend time in it. I'm like, I had never eaten real meals in here before. I'm like, this is insane. I'm just like, I can see all of my possessions at once. Like I love interiors and I have worked hard on like making my apartment comfortable, but like to like sleep in and like hang out with like, you know, one day a week, like not 24/7 and also work from here. I think that is like, you know, and like I emailed you, like the noise is just like insane. And there was an article in the New Yorker that my friend sent me about noise pollution, and essentially like honking, sirens, shouting, all of that stuff triggers your fight or flight response. So like all day long, like you're just like, your body is like, oh, we got to pay attention to this danger. We got to pay attention to this. And I'm like working now from here and hearing that and trying to be creative. And I'm like, it is not possible. And it's also just like not worth it anymore. Like I pay so much money. I tried to like unload my apartment. I tried to get out of my lease and they were like, you cannot. So I listed it to try and like get someone to bite, and like no one would, because it's a fortune. And guess what? We can't go to restaurants. We can't go to shows. We can't even go to the movies. We can't do anything. So like all the things that like made living in New York so wonderful don't really exist anymore, or like the things that kind of balanced off like having such an expensive rent don't exist anymore. So now it's like why do I do this?
Do you think, since it seems like COVID has impacted the way you think about New York, has it also impacted the way you think about work?
Not really. I mean, I have been someone who is just like already a pretty conscious person and trying to explore my relationship with grind culture and like what that is and what it means. And so I have already been someone who is like thinking about, like, I had a really healthy work-life balance before COVID. Like, I mean, I would like leave at 4:30 sometimes because I would be like, I have a 5 p.m. Pilates class, or I have a 5 p.m. Soul Cycle class. But I obviously can't do that anymore. So if anything, I think that COVID has like complicated my relationship with like how I work, because like now I'm just here all the time.
And do you find yourself turning to the internet more? Because it is where we work. We're looking at each other through a screen now, and it's also how we spend our leisure time. Has it impacted your relationship with technology?
Not really. I've, again, also been very conscious about tech for a while. So I don't think that I'm like in danger of like, you know, overstimulating myself from like use of it.
I want to turn now to talking more about the fashion industry, because I think you can provide a lot of great insights about it. What kind of change do you think is needed in the fashion industry, and what does that look like to you?
I mean, there needs to be a complete overhaul in everything. I think the first thing that the industry needs to do is just acknowledge its complicated history. And I think in fashion, we are so invested in the fantasy of things, and that permeates throughout the industry to a level which like has become like very toxic, because it doesn't really allow people to like look at things, or doesn't even allow people to be critical of things, because it's like, oh, well, I don't want to say anything bad about this brand because maybe one day I'll want to wear it, or one day I'll want to work with them. And I'm like, what is this like fear culture? Or like it keeps us all so silent and obedient. And I'm just like, that is just so stupid. Like we have to, as a culture, examine our relationship to things and figure out like that, like we give them power, not the other way around.
And what you're saying is interesting to me, because it seems like an issue that comes up a lot in the influencer space specifically, like not wanting to speak out against certain brands because of potential future relationships to cultivate. Do you find that that's where brands wield their power and their ability to kind of say, like, we have the money and the funding for you?
Yeah, I think it's like, you know, the fact that a lot of these brands that are a little bit older or have more funding can provide things like trips and hotels and experiences and access to celebrities and all of these things that, again, like you don't really work in fashion for the money. Like no one's making enough money here to like make it worth it. It is the access you get to like a glamorous lifestyle that really keeps people in it. But I mean, I think COVID has showed you like what is that really?
One thing you've said before is that the fashion industry has a pathological dedication to avoidance when it comes to addressing social issues head on. Where do you think that dedication to avoidance comes from, and who does it protect?
Again, I think it like really is about us investing in this like fantasy, like, you know, everyone used to say like, oh, magazines are so glossy that, you know, it's like this retouched beautiful world and all the people who work there are also beautiful and nothing bad happens here. And it's very, very powerful, because if the generation who has all of the positions that dictate, you know, raises or hiring or firing are people who believe that, then the people who, like, if you are not like in line or in step with that, like, I don't really see how you advance in your career. And I think that the only way that we can like, we live in a capitalist society. So frankly, if you're going to do anything, you need capital. Like, no one will tell you you can start a brand with no money. You cannot subsist on creativity alone. Like, it's just not possible. So people end up making exceptions, and they end up deciding what like really matters to them to be able to get their messaging out. And I think that along the way, you can get very lost.
But do you think actual change is possible in the fashion industry if those same kind of gatekeepers and old guard establishment people are still working in the industry?
No.
Because I think a lot about when they bring in like D&I, like there's a D&I lead of a company now, but do those leads always get the ability to fire people or hire people? And like, do they just end up being show ponies without power, or is there a way for D&I to actually exist in a company for change? But it seems like you're saying no.
I mean, I haven't seen it, so.
So how do you plan to impact change with your consulting company?
I mean, look, Chrissy and I, we've been in this industry for a decade.
Right.
Like, I don't have like any kind of like dream that we are going to like work with a brand for 2 or 3 months. And they're like, I mean, even some of our clients that we have now, I still think are behaving in ways that like are just antithetical to like what needs to happen. And so what I do, and I think that what most Black editors do, is like, you recognize like where you do have power, and you're like, I am going to do the best that I can with the resources that I have and the platform that I've been given. So like, I'm going to take this access and turn it into like something that could move the needle. Like, it probably won't in the grand scheme of things, but like, even if things just even get shaken up, I think it's useful.
And what does the shaken up look like? Does that look like people losing their jobs? Does that look like what?
I mean, it has to. Some people, yeah. Some people might lose their jobs.
And what do you think, thinking about influencer marketing specifically, what do you think needs to change about how brands and companies work with Black influencers specifically?
I mean, the influencer space is like so complicated because there's so many people who like just have like really bad business sense.
What do you mean, the brands or the influencers?
The influencers.
Okay.
So they're being taken advantage of by brands. And especially now in this moment, like I see it even with some clients that I have, like these girls will be so thirsty to get a cosign from a brand. They'll be like, oh yeah, I'll do something for free. I'm like, for free? Are you insane? That is labor. Like, why are you offering yourself like that? I'm like, and this is just like, to me, it's like a thing that gets me like pissed off anyway, because I'm like, now the brands are like, oh, well, we don't have to pay this girl. Why is she asking for money? Because look, this one said, and she has 70,000 followers. She said she'll do it for free, no problem. She reached out to us, you know? And so it creates this like economy where the influencers are giving away their power. And I think that like women do that too. Like I always am like, guys, stop offering to pay for dates, because the more you do that, the more men will think that's okay. And then they're all going to think that we all need to pay for dates. I'm not going to sit across the table from a man and put halvesies down on anything. And again, I'm not going to do content for a brand without a check. I am not going to do content for exchange of a gift. Like absolutely not. But they're just, and I also think that for so long there has just been, it's like shrouded in secrecy, like who, you know, who gets paid what is disclosed and what is not. And so I encourage brands to just like have like total pay transparency. And I'm doing a project with a company next week, and they were like, oh, we weren't really planning on paying people. And I was like, okay, I won't do it. And then they were like, okay, we'll pay you. And I was like, you also need to pay every single other person the same rate that you're paying me, or I won't do it. Because I don't want to be now getting paid and know that I'm doing things with other women and they're not getting paid.
What was the rationale for them to not bring up money to the table, especially like after this summer and in this economy?
I have no idea. It was so strange. I think that also, again, though, they think they're so powerful. They think that like people will just be like, oh, wow, look at this. They have like 1 million followers. Like I should just say yes. And I'm like, I don't care.
And you mentioned like this type of like posting online as a form of labor. So the fact that people don't charge, it makes me wonder, do you think that they don't see this as work or like true labor?
No, I think that they have an idea of where they want to go, and they have an idea of like what brands they want to align themselves with. So they're more willing to, you know, give stuff away for free or to take a different approach to it, because, you know, a lot of Black creators until June had not been getting approached by a lot of brands, and they might have been reaching out to brands and not have been getting any kind of response. So I think that they are looking at it as like, oh, this is like a bigger picture thing. You know, this is like my way of like interning.
And do you think that this work of influencing is sustainable? Something you can do for a long time?
I mean, for some people it is. I don't even know like who would want to though. Like, it's like, I don't know. It's a lot.
What do you mean by that?
Like it's a lot of work, and I don't know like how useful it is. So like, do I see myself doing this at 60, like, and still like trying to like make money from it? Like, not really. You're at the mercy of the platforms too. So, you know, if like, I remember when like TikTok, it was like the headlines were like, TikTok is being sold or shutting down. All these people who like, whose primary platform is TikTok, were giving all these like tearful goodbyes. And I'm like, but now I'm like, wow, you're really getting your news from TikTok, because anyone who knows anything would know that you can't just like shut down an app in a day. Like, I'm like, what's going on?
Literally, unless I guess some of the people are too young to remember Vine. Maybe they thought it would end up like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, there's a lot of people who were like huge on Vine, and it's like, we never heard from them again.
Why do you think people want to become influencers? Is it similar to the fashion industry and this like idea of a fantasy?
Oh yeah, for sure. People think that like, oh my gosh, like if I can do this, I can go on trips and I can get, you know, invited to this party, or I can get dresses for free or whatever. And
I wonder now, just thinking about your experience as an editor, it seems more and more that there's a thinner line between like an editor and like influencer, because now it seems like editors can kind of toe that line and play both editor and influencer, like through their own separate collaborations with brands outside of their day-to-day job. And like, what do you think about that gray line, and how do you negotiate those two identities?
I mean, I think that everyone will answer this question differently, but for me, like, I had a lot of experience in print magazines, but I would do all this work, and like if I was an assistant or assistant editor or whatever, and like my name would not be on the page. So no one would know that I would do that work. No one would know that I picked that shoe or that bag, or I found that scarf, or I selected that image. Like, no one would know that. And social media is like my opportunity and a lot of other people's opportunity to be like, this is what I like. This is what I care about. And it's not dictated by work. I don't have where I work in my bio. I basically never talk about work. because
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I'm defined by my job, but there's a lot of people who do feel like they're defined by that. And I'm like, I have other interests. I have other things going on. I have other things I'm doing. So I don't need to rely on talking about work as like a point of like, pay attention to me. I'm interesting because I have this job. I'm interesting, period. Like I could be a bum on the street. I would still be fun to watch. I think that a lot of like people, get really wrapped up in the titles they have or like the things they do like for money and that can get a little bit complicated. But I think that ultimately everyone should be able to choose like who they work with, be able to say whatever it is that, that's appropriate, of course, whatever it is that they want to on their own personal channels. Like your job does not own you. There was like a time where like a lot of people had their magazine in their handle. And I'm like, I never did that because I'm like, I'm not Teen Vogue Danielle. No way. Because I was also like, I'm not going to like work here for the rest of my life. Like who thinks like that? It's so crazy.
I mean, that used to be the goal for a lot of people, like find a solid job and stay there as long as you can. But now the work environment has changed a lot in which that's not always the case.
Yeah.
So instead of, like I think about New York now, and every time you meet somebody, especially in like this kind of hustle culture, they ask you like, what do you do? What's a better question than that?
I mean, I don't really ever ask anyone what they do. Like I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer
I
people not to. That's always the icebreaker.
I just don't. I hate it actually. And then like, they'll follow up with like try to play the name game. And I'm like, I'm already shut down. Like I already don't want to talk to you.
That was my interview with Danielle Prescod. I feel like we covered a lot of ground and it spoke to a lot of issues that my own research is concerned about. So I'm going to share a bit of at least the way I think about influencer marketing as inspired by my conversation with Danielle and as inspired by my own experiences working in marketing and studying marketing. One of the reasons that I started this podcast in the first place was because I was really curious about how COVID-19 has impacted the influencer marketing industry, and specifically, how has it complicated the relationship people have with work. So this episode with Danielle and our conversation, it really spoke to the very issues that underpin my own research and my own interest in studying influencers in the first place, because ultimately, what has become a misunderstanding of at least my own intentions in this type of scholarship is that I am assumed to be focused on social media platforms and social media companies. And actually, to the contrary, my research is about the influencers themselves as workers, influencing as a form of labor. This is an anthropology of work. So I've always been keenly focused on how influencer marketing is just a new form of work and how social media has changed the ways or evolved the ways that we live and work. And this is especially pertinent today when we think about COVID-19 and the fact that so many people have lost their jobs due to the coronavirus pandemic. Because what we're seeing, at least what I've been personally noticing, is that more and more people have been supplementing their incomes with digital labor, with online work. So more and more people are joining what is called the gig economy, what you know generally as the gig economy. So oftentimes when there's conversations about gig economy, the conversations are focused on companies like Lyft or Uber or TaskRabbit, any of these type of mainly online promoted services. But influencing and content creation and even in generally freelancing, these are gig careers. These are jobs that are a part of the gig economy as well. So I really want us to position or consider that influencers themselves and content creators themselves are also gig workers. And what is so important about this and why this industry is so important to understand better is that when we look at things like a jobs report, for example, the U.S. government, they release a jobs report every month. And the jobs report is calculated by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so BLS. So the BLS does not have a working definition for who or what gig workers are. There is no formal way of tracking gig workers. The closest language that the BLS uses to this date is contingent workers. And contingent workers are people who work in what they consider to be temporary arrangements for a year or less. There is not a consideration that people perform gig work as a long-term career, that people have long-term aspirations to be doing this type of work. It's only labeled as a temporary arrangement, usually to supplement your income in addition to a more full-time arrangement one has. It doesn't always consider the fact that people do this full time, and increasingly, because of the precarious nature of work right now, and by precarious I mean unstable, more and more people are turning to online work as their full-time jobs or full-time careers. Some estimates say that almost 60 million people are contingent workers. Some estimates say it can be as many as 75 million people. I'm sure the number has increased over the past year. There could be a chance that the reason when you see the job reports change so much is because people are supplementing their incomes with gig work or secondary work or doing gig work full time, but they're not being counted in the jobs reports, or at least in the most efficient and true to form way as to define the type of work that people are doing today. So that's why I find this work on understanding and influencing as a form of labor so important, because this is the world we live in. This is just a larger conversation about the gig economy, and it really changes the way we now approach each other. So there used to be that, back in the before times, you would go to an event and you would meet somebody, and maybe that person would ask you that icebreaker question that we all kind of dread. So what do you do? But now, what do you do? This question is almost mute, because what we do and who we work for and whether or not we have a job has changed so much in the past year. According to a survey from the Pew Research Center that was released in September, a quarter of U.S. adults said that they or someone in their household was laid off or lost their job because of the coronavirus outbreak. The survey also found that many workers who didn't lose their jobs still had to reduce their hours or take a pay cut due to the economic fallout from the pandemic. I believe that the COVID-19 pandemic has really forced all of us to consider who we are outside of our work, or at least to find work that better reflects who we are. And that is exactly what Danielle was talking about in our conversation, that she resists the urge to define herself by her job. The Pew Research Center survey also found that Black and Hispanic Americans were the most likely to have faced deep financial hardship as a result of the coronavirus outbreak. And to me, this really indicates that race should never be separated from a general analysis of work as well. One of the things that I wrote in my application to enroll into a PhD program is that I was really interested in something that I had at the time. I really came to the PhD program with a theory in mind. I wanted to call it the monetization gap. I had a theory just based off of my years of experience working in the marketing industry and seeing budgets, like I've seen the numbers, that Black and Hispanic influencers and content creators did make less than their white counterparts. The budgets for those more what they call niche marketing campaigns were smaller, so thereby I concluded that they did make less. But of course, clients will never admit to this, and pay transparency really is not a thing in marketing, nor is it a thing in the influencer marketing industry, at least from my professional vantage point at that time. So I wanted to study or do research to affirm what I felt was happening, and I called it the monetization gap. This is a name I came up with. But again, this is something that people don't talk about. So it was really refreshing in Danielle's remarks about the influencer marketing industry and even the fashion industry, that she was so transparent about money, that the fact that people don't work in fashion for the money, you work in fashion for the access. People don't work in influencer marketing, maybe not only for the money, they also do it for the access. And this really speaks to the trends that we've seen over the past months with Instagram accounts like the influencer pay gap that has really shined a light to the pay discrepancies in the influencer marketing industry and how race is often a factor in how much people are paid for their labor. The Influencer Pay Gap is an Instagram account that was created by Adesuwa Ajayi, and she's a Black woman who works at the talent agency AGM, and she manages influencers. So she created this Instagram account where she started to ask influencers anonymously to detail their past brand campaigns and to share their engagement rate. And an engagement rate is what percentage of people interact with their content. Numbers are very big in this industry, and how much they were paid, what they do, their race, and where they're based. So this was essentially a global survey. Anyone who's an influencer can submit, even to this day, via DMs. So Ajayi started this account back in June, and it has already grown to over 47,000 followers at the time of this recording. And she says that she made this account after working with influencers for a few years and realizing what I had also realized, that Black influencers' experiences, pay, and access to opportunities weren't equal to their white counterparts. So this is something that more and more people are acknowledging and talking about. Influencers are beginning to have conversations amongst each other about who's getting paid for what, and this paid transparency is really important and something that should be more common across all industries, because we have heard the facts before about the pay gap between women of color and white men, women in general, and white men. So there will be more conversations about this as influencing begins to get taken up as a legitimate career and a legitimate labor force. And perhaps, and this is something that I want to keep an eye on, we will see the Bureau of Labor Statistics consider ways to more efficiently highlight the work or the labor of content creators within the gig economy, or to at least better define what it means to be a gig economy worker. I want to thank all of you for listening to this first season of the Black in Real Life podcast. This is not the last episode. This is the episode before the last episode. But this is the last episode where I will be hosting a one-on-one conversation with a guest. The next episode, which is episode 9 and the final episode of this first season, will be a little different, and I'm excited for you to hear what that sounds like. But before that, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for engaging with this project and supporting it. If you can, and I never asked this before, but I totally should have, please review and rate this podcast 5 stars if you feel like it's a 5-star chick on Apple Podcasts, because that will get more eyes and ears on it and hopefully generate more support for this project. So again, thank you for supporting the Black in Real Life podcast, and I will see you in a couple weeks right before the New Year's for episode 9. You have just listened to a production of the Black in Real Life podcast, hosted by Anuli Akanegbu, developed by Anuli Akanegbu, scripted by Anuli Akanegbu, edited by Anuli Akanegbu, with research support by Anuli Akanegbu. The music was graciously provided by Garth, whose single Wild can be streamed on anywhere you can find music. Thank you, and remember, the people you follow online are also Black in real life.